Father, as we come to you now, thank you for the privilege you've given us to gather and to give. Thank you for the offerings. Pray you would bless the offerings to be used for the gospel and compassion across the world. Pray for the Schumacher family. Bless them. What a wonderful life of ministry as a chaplain in the military. Pray for the service of Edith. And Father, your word says that in Psalm 119, your word is a lamp to my feet and a light to my path. This morning, as we look into your word, we ask that it would be just that in each of our lives. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. If you have a Bible, I want you to turn to Mark 4. I'd like you to have that open so that you could follow along a little bit. Our series through Mark has been in a particular way. We're going through Mark, looking at one thing in particular, which is how to follow quickly after him. And so the first week was following Jesus without pause, that when he calls us, we go, receive his forgiveness, full commitment to conversion and discipleship. Last week, the need for us to live Christ-centered. Today's trait is giving whatever you have to the Lord, no matter how small it may be, for him to use in great ways. There are 4 gospel accounts, and outside of the resurrection of Jesus, there's only one story that's in all 4 gospels. And that would be the feeding of the 5,000, which is what we're looking at today in Mark 6. So by way of this story, I want us to be challenged to live to give all that we have to Jesus to be used in his service. Do you have your Bible there? Mark 6, starting in verse 30. The apostles returned to Jesus and told him all that they had done and taught. So he had dispersed them to do ministry. Now they're all coming back to him. And he said, hey, come away by yourselves to a desolate place and rest a while. I think that's an important setup to this text. In fact, this is a bit unique to this account. It has a little intro that has nothing to do with the 5,000 right away, but it's setting it up where he says, hey, you guys are exhausted. I know you've been out doing what I've called you to do, so why don't we get away and rest for a while? For many were coming and going, and they had no leisure, not even to eat. And they went away in the boat to a desolate place by themselves. Now many saw them going and recognized them, and they ran there on foot from all the towns and got there ahead of them. When he went ashore, he saw a great crowd, and he had compassion on them because they were a sheep without a shepherd. He began to teach them many things, and when it grew late, the disciples came in and said, 2 things that are true. This is a desolate place, and the hour is now late. Send them away into the surrounding countryside and villages to buy themselves something to eat. But he answered to them, you give them something to eat. In the Gospel of John is the only one that says, he looked at Philip and said, are you going to go get them something to eat? Because Philip is from there. So he would know all the local places. So looked at Philip, you're aware, so why don't you go get something? He said, shall we go and buy 200 denarii worth of bread and give it to them to eat? It's almost a year's wages. Are we just going to grab somebody's annual wages and go find bread? And he said to them, how many loaves do you have? Go and see. And when they'd found out, they came back and said, 5 and 2 fish. Take a look back up to the top. He's in the boat. It's Sea of Galilee. It's not a very big lake. It goes by different names in the New Testament. There are actually as many as 6 different names for the Sea of Galilee. In the New Testament, there are 3 different names. It doesn't name it here, but it's not real big. The Sea of Galilee is the 2nd lowest lake in the world, the lowest being the Dead Sea. So they're right there. It's not real big, and so not a lot of activity, not a lot of skiing during that day, water skiing. It wasn't really hadn't caught on yet. And so it was easy to see him pull away, and you know that he's right there. I mean, it's not hard. It's not like, oh, there's 50 boats out there. No, there's one, and that's Jesus. So you can actually move along the side of the coast and look ahead to where he's going, probably even guess whereabouts he would go. It's just a beautiful passage in 34. He went ashore and saw a great crowd, and he had compassion. He was inwardly moved. It's a common characteristic of his. And in ministry, and you're in it too, in whatever degree of where you are in your family and your life, I know those times that I'm tired and I need to get away to a desolate place and rest. I know when I'm hitting that point where I'm exhausted. Where the disciples did not look out and see them and have compassion on them. And I don't blame them. This is now rest time. Jesus saw them and immediately began to teach. Like, does this guy not have any end to his love and compassion? Well, what motivates it? It's that next phrase, because they were like a sheep without a shepherd. And many have pointed out that phrase. Then go ahead and look at verse 39, the last two words of 39. He commanded them all to sit down in groups on the green grass. Saw them as a sheep without a shepherd, and then he had all go sit in the green grass. That make you think of something? It's Psalm 23. It was a late hour. There was a lot here. Grant and I, especially in our family, like snacks. Like somebody this morning, I honestly don't remember, maybe it was Al Moffat. He had like crackers and peanut butter in his pocket this morning. Al, are you in here? I should have sat next to him. I should have sat next to you. But I'm like, that guy, he may forget his car keys or his Bible, but he's got snacks in his pocket. Nicely done. Like, this guy, he's my kind of guy. So if you hear rummaging of paper and you think, what is there, a third grader back there? Oh no, it's Al. He has a thermos with milk. I mean, this is unbelievable. I'm so proud of him. Sarah went to school in a farming community, a high school, Firelands, Ohio, and they didn't lock their lockers. And so she would get there in the morning, and several days in a row, her lunch was stolen. So her mother is the best. She's got, I just love her mom. And her mom said, oh, that's okay, Sarah, we'll take care of it. Let's make chocolate chip cookies for lunch tomorrow. I had no idea she had an evil streak. It was with a pile of X-Lax. And Sarah then, she's got that twinkle in the eye as these evil people are looking and going, we'll get them. We'll get the little children. And so, sure enough, she goes like usual, puts her lunch in there, and her mom said, it's not a big deal, just keep going by the office, find out who goes home early. Never had her lunch stolen again. I don't even eat her mom's cookies. I'm still afraid. Where's Rob? He's in the bathroom waiting for a cookie. Okay. You literally imagine this young kid with his lunch. Now, out of the 4 stories, John's the only one that mentions the boy. The other 3 don't. The other 3 pass by. Mark just says, go find out, comes back, it's the same amount of food. We're sure that's who it is, because John told us so. That's huge to the child. And I just love the story. I can't wait to meet the kids someday. Literally, the mom, the dad packed a little lunch with this kind of roasted salted fish and barley bread, which is kind of a low-end bread of the day, and packed his little lunch because he wants to go follow and listen to Jesus. Is that awesome? I don't know, with an uncle, with a little clan, I have no idea, but there is with his little lunch, off he goes. And what good is that kid's lunch? Well, you ask disciples, not a lot of good. They were thinking on a grander scale. When we need ministry needs filled, funding, or workers, it's the contribution of everybody. And even if it seems like a little amount or not much at all, the greatest ability that you and I have is our availability. So take a minute and think about your lunch. What do you have? Take that assessment and don't demean it. Don't look and say, oh, that's not much. No, that lunch wasn't much. You had it. What do you have? Think about past tense positively what you have used in your life, in the lives of others that didn't seem like much. You're a good listener. Well, you and I know not everybody's a good listener. That's a gift of yours. And you've probably used it. You're really good at thinking and processing and making decisions, and you've used that for God and your money or your talents and abilities, your toys, whatever it happens to be, you've used it. Probably the more memorable services up at Verdi for me over this 10 years in Cottonwood, I was preaching similar ideas, and that's when I first used the phrase, lose your lunch. You need to lose your lunch for Jesus. And I had this guy come up afterwards, 70s, I don't know. He came up, a little bit of an attitude, and he said, I said, hey, what can I do for you? He goes, I'm here to lose my lunch. And I'm like, come on, man, lose it. What do you have? He goes, I play the organ. And I'm like, and somebody wants to hear it? I'm not kidding. He goes, he called me son. He goes, listen, son, you don't understand. I play the organ. I went, well, we don't have one. He goes, I have one. I'll bring it. And I'm like, I can't get out of that. I can't shake this guy to save my life. And so I said, well, what do you do? When you're senior pastor, there's not many great benefits. One of them is pass it to an associate. Because every one of their job descriptions has a line that says, anything that I want them to do. So my car's clean, my everything, it's all taken care of. I said, oh, you know what, talk to our worship pastor. They talked. Sure enough, he brought in a 1950s B3 Hammond with a Leslie. Does that mean anything to anybody? Okay, you know it to hear it, even if you don't know what I'm talking about. So he's up there playing, and he played with Gary Puckett in the Union Gap. Does that mean anything? Wow, really? Are we that old? Okay. In fact, he led Gary Puckett to Christ. So I know, look at all the young ones are going, really? I don't have no idea what you people are talking about. So, so he plays up there, and I'm not kidding, it's hilarious. And now I'm going to really digress. I already have, so I might as well spend a few minutes here. Millie Ramatula. Yes? Yay, Millie. So John Ball right there. Yes, John Ball used to play the organ right over here. One Sunday night, I went to John Ball, and he was playing before church, and I said, is this an all skate? John Ball doesn't miss a beat. He goes, nope, couples only. I'm like, man, he is the man right there. Well, Millie was the other one that played the organ. She came up to see me at Verdi, and Barry was playing the organ, squealing and everything that it does. And afterwards, I'm like, Millie, it's so nice to see you. She says, it's good. I said, what did you think of the organist? And she goes, well, it was interesting. That's the best she could do, is pull that out. So it's I want to lose my lunch. This is what you lose your lunch. What is the ability, the talent? You're good with numbers and finance, and so you find ways in which you can help others, either one-on-one or in a ministry. Assess what you have. Assess it. And say, it's not much, but God, it's yours. Don't be thinking, where am I going to use it? No, that's not what we're asking. What we're saying is, what do you have? Take an assessment. Don't think about where. He'll point that out. Well, I have this. And he goes, excellent. Is it mine or yours? Well, Lord, it's yours. Perfect. Keep that in your mind. I will use that. I had sit in my office. Oh, this is like oldies day, all right? So Barry Ling. Yeah, Barry Ling used to attend here, and years ago went up to help out in Anthem. He's still there. I'm not going to tell you Barry's age because that wouldn't be fair. I'm going to just give you a general hint. He's going to be 80 next year. Okay? That's all I'm going to say. So I did not say his age. So he's sitting on my couch just Friday afternoon, and he's in good shape, he's doing fine, and he's just kind of leaning back. You got to know Barry. He's just so casual, leaning back and whatever, talking about his ministry. He is regularly headphones online like a young kid playing a game, sharing the gospel. Microphone. And he goes, they have no idea how old I am. And I'm sitting there going, I'm listening to you. I think they do. He just led his 100th person to Christ online. I'm like, oh, Barry. At 79. He goes, all I know is I know how to share the gospel. I know how to do that. And I know how to go all the way and lead somebody to Christ. And there he is, figuring out ministries in which he can do that online. It's fantastic. Look at verse 39. Verse 39 says, then he commanded them all to sit in groups on the green grass. So they sat down in groups, by hundreds, by 50s. And taking the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven, said a blessing, broke the loaves, gave them to the disciples to set before the people, and he divided the 2 fish among them all. I don't know. I read one commentary that said you just got to literally imagine 5,000 people, and that's just a general, it means an enormous amount of people. And as we know and read, it's likely 5,000 men, so then you add the others, and it's this huge crowd gathered in 50s and hundreds. And then there was this little statement I read this week in a commentary that said, you realize that most didn't even know a miracle was going on. Well, they can't. There's people everywhere. There's people moving everywhere. They have no idea where that came from. The blessing, the holding it up, no, he's blessing the food. This is fantastic. I think that's what he's doing. And then it just kept going and going. And I'm going to tell you, I think the little boy was probably there. I think the miracle was for the disciples to see. But I think it's interesting that he gave all of it. The little boy didn't give partial. Because really, okay, if you're going to take 5 and 2 and feed 5,000, I would have bargained. I'd see the crackers in Al Moffat's pocket, and I'd say, okay, there's 2 for me, there's 2 for him, there's 6 in there, aren't there? Yes, okay. I'm very familiar with the particular snack that he has. So there's 2 for me, there's 2 for Al, and if you're going to go 5,000, I'll take the other 2, and then why don't you break those and go with it? He didn't. I mean, I just can't even imagine. I want to see it someday on that huge jumbotron in heaven where you can just put the text in, and you're going to see it, and you're going to be in the middle of it. It's going to be air, it's going to be 15D, and you're just going to be all through it, and it's going to be awesome. I want to see the little kid hand it. Like, are you kidding? I'm here actually from who knows where, but I brought a lunch to see you. I never even thought I was going to get that close. Are you saying he wants my lunch? That shaky hand goes, you can have it. I'm so excited he took my lunch. This is awesome. And I don't know, his head down as he's eating, going, I don't understand this. My lunch, that bag was a lot bigger than I had thought it was. This is fantastic. And quite honestly, no offense to Mom, but this bread's even a little better. He gave all of it. So last week we spoke of the The concept of nestling up with Jesus in that stern of the boat, that back area, that cushion is Jesus is there. And we spoke specifically in the context of a storm. It's not just in the context of a storm, it's all the time. Where we get up and we face a day and we want to curl up and put the hand under his neck and just sit and rest with him for a moment. So as we do that, we're also saying, and it's so important for us to say this, and it's really not even just for him, it's for ourselves, that we name things and say, you know, my family's your family. And he goes, yeah, I know. And then my voice goes down. Well, no, I mean, like, do as you please with them. And he glances over and he goes, I will, and it'll be best for you. It will? Uh-huh. Then they're yours. My car is yours. Do you mind getting the oil changed? He goes, well, no, you're borrowing it, so you change the oil. Okay, just checking. Right? So then we start giving everything. That's the idea of the little boy, is it doesn't seem like much, and you say, you know what, I'm pretty good at math. And he goes, you actually are really good at math. Well, thank you. It's your talent. I can speak in front of a group. I'm terrific one-on-one. I have a little extra cash. And he goes, are you giving me that little extra cash, or do I get all of it? Oh, it's all yours. So we're resting and we're living this Christ-centered life where his heartbeat matches, or my heartbeat matches his heartbeat. And the struggles of life are all of a sudden, all I care is that I'm alone with him. And I give him everything. So often we'll say in prayer, when you say confess your sin, it's a great idea. God, I'm sorry that I'm doing this. And he goes, it's okay, you're forgiven. I'm sorry that I did this. It's good. But give all your talents too. Well, you know what? I had a great day yesterday because I was serving down at Alongside Ministries. And he goes, oh, I knew you were down there. I was there with you. It was beautiful. Thanks. I'll go anytime you want me to go. Thank you. And I've got these dreams. Well, I'm giving them to you. My family and my car and my money and my abilities and my experiences and my personality. It's all yours. And then we rest. God, I'm going to go face my day. And I want this rest to go with me. And part of it is everything that's mine is yours. And he goes, yeah, I hear you, but I am happy that you have all of that. Thank you. I'll take care of it. And I'll use it whenever you want me to use it. If you write, if you're good at counseling, if you can fix a car, if you're good at math, if you're an artist, some of you volunteered Alongside Ministry. What a great ministry. Or Phoenix Rescue Mission, Kitchen on the Street, Choices, Salvation Army. These are places that are doing good works. And they all have different needs. And you match what you're good at and say, God, I'm good at all of this. It's not terrific. My mom is probably, and Randy's mom too, is probably the one of the more talented people that you'll meet. I should have gone offline for that in case she's on. Oh, I'm about to hear about that. What I meant to say is I know this mom, and so she'll start something and then she just like masters it and she moves on to something else. So she collected antique baby quilts. So like they tell a story, and so she had 30 of these, and they're worth a fair amount. And she would go to historic societies, and she would display them and explain them. I'm not kidding. I'd pay money to not be in that room. I'd pay a lot. They should sell tickets and say, hey, for $50, can I not go? And then she could make a lot of money. But she would go there, and people would listen, wow, and to all of this. But what she did is the baby quilts were in such a way that she shared the gospel through it. Well, they're paying her to go to this secular historic society because they already heard. They would love to see these things. Like, this is quite a collection. They pay her to go and she shares the gospel. Is that not bad? I know many of you have done similar where you use your ability. One of our own chaplains here who has kind of become sort of the chaplain of a racetrack south of town because they knew they became a chaplain, so he now prays over the thing. It's using what you love. What do you love to do? You give it to God and say, I don't know what this means, but it's yours. It's yours, and I want you to use it. My friends up in Cottonwood know and remember Mary Hackney. Mary Hackney passed away 5 years ago at the age of 84. Mary was the sweetest lady, and my many visits to sit and listen to her talk. She lived in Clarkdale, so up outside of Cottonwood, which is outside of Sedona, outside of Flagstaff. And so, do you guys get the bearings on that? Just north of Phoenix. And so what she would do was, she was right there adjacent to the Apache Yavapai nation, and kids would come to her place. She had a freezer full of popsicles. They would all come and they would do their homework, and she would help them all with their homework. And they came because they needed it, because they loved the popsicles, and they ended up just loving her to death, and she led many of them to Christ. Unbelievable. Like it was no big deal, she told me when she was 12 years old in a small town in Oklahoma, she's walking home from school with her good friend who had this beautiful blonde hair, as she would say, and she sat in front of her in many of her classes, and she would braid her hair in class. They're walking home along this canal, and under a tree, finally had the opportunity at 12 to lead this beautiful little friend of hers to Christ. And Mary's like, it was so beautiful to hear her voice. We ran home, and she ran home. Next day at school, she wasn't there. And I'm now at the edge of my seat. And Mary is such a sweet saint. And she goes, I thought, what happened? Turned out that darling little gal died in her sleep that night. And she said, the rest of my life from age 12, I will share the gospel. Every opportunity I can. And I'm not kidding, Mary, anything special? Yeah, her heart. Her heart. But no, outside of that, not really. She's literally helping kids with their homework. That's all she knew how to do, is to love them and then have opportunities to share Christ with them. It's fantastic. Your $10 a week multiplies in the hands of God. Anyone or anything in the hands of God can do what God can do. One of my, I think you know, a soft spot to me are those of you that work in Awana. Those little kids struggling to get through their verses, like Barney Fife trying to repeat the preamble. And gonna have to Google it. And they're just listening. That's it. The patience, though, the listening. I wasn't in Cottonwood for weeks, and a call came in. We referred to this guy immediately, my assistant did, as Too Little Too Late John. That's what we called him. Guy called us out of the blue, out of nowhere. We just no idea who he was. His name's John. He has lung cancer, and he needs to know a little bit more about God and eternity. My assistant came in and said, what do you want to do? You want to hand this off to an assistant? And I went, no, you know what? I'll go. It's not far from my house. I'll go. I'll sit with him. So it became one of like 6 or 7 weekly events that I would sit with him. Big old beard, large truck driver, on oxygen because of his lungs. Rough. Probably in about week 6, I had the privilege of leading Too little, too late, John. I had the privilege of leading him to Christ. But what was so striking to me is he was so excited. We were so open. He just didn't want to. Week 6, he did. We prayed together, finished, and I said, there's a great verse. For God so loved the world that he gave, and he said, his only son. And I went, and whoever believes in him will not perish, but have everlasting life. John, where did you pull that out from? He goes, 70 years ago, I was in like a Sunday school all week in the summer, vacation Bible school, and I memorized it. 70 years later, it played a part in him coming to know Christ. If there'd be a way to go back to whoever that was, to say, oh, that little kid, that kid right there, that you, years later, were disappointed because he's away from the Lord, he's this big old truck driver, and he's got a horrible mouth and beer drinking, and just a rough guy, and you thought you lost him. But because you listened, you didn't lose him at all. So what is it that you have? I don't know what it is, but I do know that as you nestle up with Jesus in that stern, you just offer, and just start naming it. Your motorcycle, your bicycle, your whatever you like. You love to cook. Say that. I love to cook. Whatever it is you enjoy and you like, you just keep handing it and say it's all yours. In 1896, for his Sunday night services, Pastor Sheldon thought he would write a story. 31 chapters. Every Sunday night he would speak one chapter. I don't know how well that would go over, actually, but whatever. After several weeks, literally the crowd is out of control. It's huge. He finished it, and it was published in 1896. There's a copy of it outside the doors in the lobby. I really want you to make sure you grab one on the way out. In His Steps by Charles Sheldon. Grab that on the way out. There's a reason why it is on the list of one of the most published books in history, with 50 million copies. Well, that was because the Chicago Advance, which is the original publisher, failed to register the copyright correctly. So once week 31 hit, and that thing was complete, because it was published every week in a weekly periodical. So all you have to do is collect it. And they're collecting. Week 31, it was instantly published by 3 different publishers. It ended up all over the world. And Charles Sheldon, when asked, hey, sorry about your book, he goes, it wasn't my book. It wasn't my book. If I had it copyrighted, it wouldn't have made it anywhere near where it went. And it wasn't my book. That was God's book. Isn't that beautiful? I love that. So take a snapshot of your life, and my encouragement to you in your devotional reading later today or tomorrow morning as you sit and curl up with Jesus, would you curl up and just simply start naming stuff? It's yours. That's part of us letting go of things. We open up our hands. That's why in worship many times people do that, or in prayer. It's saying, no, I'm empty-handed. It's all yours. I'm fairly good at this. I love to do this. I love hiking, but Lord, it's yours. I'm going to keep hiking because I love it, but it's yours. So if you need that, you come to me because I'm a hiker. And God goes, good, I'll keep that in mind. But in the meantime, you just keep enjoying it. Do you see how that works? Keep giving it to him and giving it to him.